The clock on the wall ticked toward 4:12 p.m. The last hints of daylight slanted through the tall windows of Willow Creek High, staining the empty hallways in a dusky amber. The air was still, the faint hum of fluorescent lights the only sound, except for the muffled thump of footsteps behind her. Ms. Elena Cruz had learned to recognize that sound. It wasn't the casual shuffle of students heading home. It was purposeful, sharp, like a hunter closing in on prey. She kept walking, clutching the stack of graded tests against her chest. Her heels clicked on the polished tile, the sound bouncing off rows of dented lockers. She passed the "Go Mustangs" banner still drooping from last Friday's game, a reminder that this was supposed to be a safe, spirited place. "Hey, Ms. Cruz," a voice called. It was smooth, mocking, dripping with the kind of false friendliness that made her stomach tighten. She didn't turn. She already knew the voice belonged to Brad Taylor, a tall junior with a swagger he wore like armor. Behind him, two shadows lengthened on the wall, Derek with his ever-present backward cap, and Mason, the silent one who laughed at all the wrong things. She lengthened her stride. The tests felt heavier in her arms. The first shove came without warning. Brad's palm hit her shoulder, and the impact slammed her into the cold steel of the lockers. The metallic bang echoed through the hallway. Papers flew from her grasp, sliding across the floor like startled birds taking flight. Brad grinned, leaning in close enough that she could smell the faint tang of mint gum. "Not so tough without your chalkboard, huh?" Elena's pulse thudded in her ears. She could have shouted. She could have run. But instead, she felt something else rising inside her, something she hadn't touched in nearly a decade. Her mind flickered back to a different kind of hallway, her childhood dojo. The faint scent of sweat and incense. The sound of bare feet shuffling on tatami mats. Her father's voice, warm but firm, "Elena, remember, judo is not for hurting people. It's for keeping balance. Yours, and theirs." She'd left that world behind after his death, folding her black belt into a drawer she hadn't opened in years. She'd thought she was done with it. But right now, in the stale air of this high school, that part of her woke up like it had been waiting all along. Derek gave her another shove, harder this time. The lockers rattled. Mason chuckled. Elena straightened, brushing her hair back from her face. "Stop," she said quietly. Brad's smirk widened. "Or what?" She bent as if to pick up her scattered papers. And in that motion, her right hand found Brad's wrist. Her left hand gripped his elbow. A pivot of her hips. A drop of her weight. The hallway tilted, no, he tilted, and then Brad's back slammed into the tile with a thud that knocked the air from his lungs. Derek lunged, all instinct and rage. She sidestepped, caught his arm, and redirected his own momentum into the lockers. The clang echoed like a gong. Mason froze. His eyes darted from Brad groaning on the floor to Derek slumped against the lockers to the young math teacher standing perfectly still, breathing slow, blazer smoothed back into place. "Judo," she said evenly. "It means the gentle way. Gentle doesn't mean weak." The three boys scrambled to their feet, their bravado crumbling. They muttered something under their breath, but their voices had lost all sharpness. "And before we go further, if you're the kind of person who feels a spark in moments like this, if you love stories where quiet strength bursts into something unforgettable, I'd love for you to join me on Soul Touch Stories. That's where I share real, raw, and powerful tales that stay with you. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next one." By the next morning, whispers about the judo teacher raced through the school. Elena felt the change instantly, stares lingering longer than usual, students moving out of her way in the hallway, a few even nodding at her with something like respect. But the real shift came days later. The final bell had rung, and students were pouring out the doors when Elena noticed a girl lingering by her desk. Lily Harper, small, quiet, the kind of student who melted into the background, fiddled with the strap of her backpack. "Miss Cruz," she asked, her voice so soft it barely carried over the shuffle of departing footsteps. "Is it true? About the hallway?" Elena hesitated, then nodded. "I defended myself." Lily bit her lip. "Could you teach me? Just how to not feel so small?" The question hit Elena like a slow, steady wave. She'd promised herself she'd never teach again. But looking at Lily, she realized this wasn't about reopening old wounds, it was about giving someone else the tools to heal theirs. They started in the gym the following Tuesday. At first, it was just Lily, awkward and shy, stumbling through the footwork. But soon others joined, kids with glasses too big for their faces, kids who flinched when lockers slammed, even a tall boy with a stutter who'd been a frequent target of Brad's crew. They laughed at their own mistakes at first, but gradually the laughter became something else, a kind of joy at discovering their own capability. Elena didn't just teach them throws and holds, she taught them posture, eye contact, how to plant their feet like they belonged exactly where they stood. One late afternoon, as the winter light spilled gold across the gym floor, the door creaked open. Brad stood there, hands in his hoodie pocket. The room went silent. He cleared his throat. "I want to learn." Nobody moved. Elena met his gaze. "Line up." It wasn't easy. He bristled at correction, scowled when smaller students bested him in technique. But week after week, something shifted. He started helping others learn. He stopped using his size as a weapon. One rainy evening, after the rest of the class had gone, Brad lingered. "I used to think strength meant making people afraid," he said quietly. "I didn't know it could mean protecting them." Her father's words came back to her as if whispered from just over her shoulder, "The real measure of strength is what you do with it." Months passed. The class grew. Students who had once been invisible now walked the halls with heads high. Bullies didn't vanish overnight, but they hesitated, sensing that the balance of power had shifted. And then came the day that told Elena everything had been worth it. She was locking her classroom door when she heard raised voices down the hall. Turning, she saw Lily, tiny Lily, standing in front of a younger boy pressed against the lockers. Two older students loomed over him, but Lily didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stood there, posture grounded, gaze steady. The older boys looked at each other, then walked away without a word. The younger boy murmured a thank you, and Lily simply smiled. That was the victory. Not the throws, not the hallway incident, but this. A ripple of courage passing from one person to another. If this story has touched you, if it's made you believe in the strength we can give each other, then be part of our community. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Soul Touch Stories so you're here for the next journey. Elena stepped into the fading winter sunlight outside the school, the cold air filling her lungs. She knew her father would be proud, not because she'd fought back, but because she'd built something stronger than fear. The gentle way, she realized, was never about avoiding conflict. It was about ending it without hate. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can teach isn't how to fight, but when not to.